How's everybody's Thursday going?
Busy. How about yours?
Not busy. We'll balance each other out.
You know, I'd like to try not busy. Get a, how do you do that?
You just at one point tell the man to stop paying you money.
Yeah, I need money though. I
A lot of
gotta.
people do. Kids in school. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've noticed the
Brian.
bus is out.
Ugh, I feel you. We walk to school, which is really nice, but I just don't think we were ready for like the flip. Like it was time to go, get up early and do all this stuff. And so,
Getting up early is overrated.
mhm.
So I'm guessing we'll probably have a few more people trickling in as we go. But I think one of the first ones to chat about, still looking for feedback from other maintainers on this one, but it might be a good question because I think Rom, this probably came from working with some SOT issues of looking for whether or not index entries should be allowed to be anything other than a manifest. So, did the conversation there answer the questions that you were looking for on the SOT side, or do you think folks are still looking for answers on that one?
I think that we are trying out a fix, Brandon, based on the last comment, which actually makes sense.
Yeah, I know as much as Tina and I hate to see it, there was the issue with BuildKit where they are shipping stuff with blobs. So as a registry, you kind of have to still support it to have things in there that aren't a manifest. But if you want to support BuildKit cache images, by the default cache images, they do have an option to flip it. If that's not something you want to support, then I think you can be a little bit more strict.
Yeah, yeah. I think we want to be flexible here, which is yes, index containing indexes, index containing manifests, index containing manifests. Should those manifests be listed up directly? All of those things should be actually acceptable. No reason not to support this.
Yeah. All right. I've got on the agenda to hopefully get some other maintainers, so it's not just me answering, but hopefully at least that gets you a direction on your side. Okay, we got Sajay and Tina.
Once you have a registry, people try all sorts of weird things, unexpected things. So,
If a registry will accept it, they will send it. And sometimes even if it won't accept it, they'll try sending it. So on image spec, I've got an item in here to look at, which is issue 803, kind of an older one. But this one I thought was interesting in that we've got Z standard compression, ZSTD. I always say Z standard. Not sure the proper pronunciation there. Where Sebastian had asked a long time ago, way back in 2020, hey, do we want to formalize this support? We've got the media type defined in media types. We've got, okay, so it's not just me. Good. Thanks, Brian. So we've got the media type defined in the media types, but the text inside of the image manifest itself just says that layers need to have, and I'll send a link over here in a second to the chat. But our text on the layers only has specified this link pasted. the layers for tar or tar plus gzip. We don't have anything in the image manifest that says implementation should or must support any of the Z standard layers or any other layer formats in there. I'm wondering if it makes sense to say it should support it. I think a must might be a little bit strict, but I'm open to discussion there as well. What do folks think? Should we extend that list inside of the manifest definition to include the other layer types?
I don't think we can reasonably upgrade that to a must for other layer types.
If we did, it would have to be, we're talking a new version, and so people could say they're just a 1.1 spec compatible and not great, but
Yeah, I don't think Zstead is worth that, frankly. I think we need a more interesting change to be worth such a large breaking event.
how about a whole new manifest media type?
Yeah, something that actually solves the problems of the manifest media type, not just a superfluous
Right.
reorganization of the existing type.
So yeah, adding a couple of more media types in there under the should. Folks comfortable with that? Or do folks want to see that backed all the way down to just implementations may support these other media types that we've defined in the spec?
Should seems fine to me.
Yeah, if you don't do a should, then nobody cares.
I think at this point, most implementations probably already do, right?
Yeah, container D and by extension of that, Docker do, and I think a bunch of the Red Hat people have said they're going to start building their images by default with C standards. So given those two, I think that covers a vast majority of the cases out there. Mike, you jumped in halfway through us discussing this one. We're talking about image spec issue 803. It's in the notes.
Let me bring it up.
All right, so that I think covers the thing that I think we absolutely need from this issue. All the way down at the bottom, I kind of summarized a whole bunch of stuff in there. I think adding that one bit of text to manifest the manifest markdown file is needed. There were some other discussions in there. How do you make maybe a multi-platform image or a single image manifest that has both? A lot of discussions going back and forth. But that was also 4-year-old conversations that I think some of the spec changes have changed since then. So we've changed some of the text around that implementations must ignore unknown media types to say, hey, if you're copying a media type that you don't recognize, you should not err on it, kind of deal. So I think we've tweaked some of the language so that runtimes, when they see a media type in a layer they don't recognize, they will err, as they probably should. I think there's been a lot of discussion of whether or not this should be a transport level compression from registries instead of something directly in the image manifest. I think if we went that direction with transport level compression at the registry side, there's going to be a lot of hesitation on adopting that, just knowing the intermediate state of before clients and registries are all upgraded, you're going to have uncompressed layers going around.
It's better than the intermediate state for Z standard, where you have layers that clients can't even use. It's a transition plan that at least works, even if it's suboptimal.
I'm guessing you're not talking with your Docker hat on, with your Docker Hub hat on.
Oh yeah, not with the Docker Hub hat, but the person who used to be the engineering manager for the Docker Hub team, is one of the primary people pushing for, or was one of the primary people in Docker pushing for this solution specifically. He's the author of all the internal Notion docs about it.
Okay. I like the idea. I just worry registries would see that and be like, oh no, all the bandwidth we're going to get coming from this. It's nice when everything is upgraded, but I just worry about that intermediate step. There's still Docker 1.13 out there, although potentially it does that transparently under the covers and Go just handles everything fantastic.
Yeah, it's the at-rest storage in clients like Containerd and registries that concerns me. But that feels like a more tractable problem than figuring out a migration plan to Z standard.
My guess is that if you did it at a transport level, registries would probably pre-cache whatever their preferred compression method is.
Yeah, which is very reasonable. And then they can even respond to clients and say, oh, you want this compression? Sorry, this is the only one I have.
Yeah.
If you want transport compression, this is the one you should use.
And clients would say, hey, I can potentially take gzip or Z standard. The registry says, great, here's the one I'm giving you.
Yeah, and it gets us away from that. Rather, the thing I like most about this is that it solves other issues too, where using the compressed version of a blob as the canonical artifact for that blob has side effects. The
Yeah.
most obvious evidence of that is the diff IDs in the config digest, or in the config blob, that we still have to store a digest of the uncompressed copy. Like, what if it just was?
To Sajay's question, I believe the answer is yes. Per blob, the content would be, the compression type would be negotiated, but I think it's just the client is sending a request saying, I need this blob with this uncompressed digest with these algorithms. Give me whatever
Yeah.
you can. The registry comes back and says, here it is.
Yeah, the client just sends a header that says, here's the compression types I support for transport compression. And the registry says, okay, here's the one I used. And here's your content.
You don't have a way to express this today in the manifest, right? Or even on the registry side.
It wouldn't be specified in the manifest. The manifest would actually go back to just saying all the media types are tar without the plus gzip on the end. It's because you're moving into the transport level, it is into the client doing the pulling. So Containerd, Cryo, any of these other runtimes out there or container engines out there, they would have to include that header in their pull, which I think Go might do out of the box, but don't fact check me on that yet. Or please do fact check me and prove me wrong.
So this is only transport level changes, or are we talking about the way that the data is also uploaded or persisted?
If it's transport level, the upload would be the uncompressed tar, but on the push, the registry will be able to say, hopefully the registry can say, hey, when you do the push at the transport level as well there. I would need to check that.
Parts of me are slowly dying. If the registry has to do more work, it's just going to be, it'll take a long time, in short.
What I'm wondering is how much of this is automatically covered out of the box today by Go. Just thinking how many registries and clients are Go already. Is that transport level compression just something that comes out of the box when you do an HTTP request?
You have other compositions with CDNs on top, right? So the negotiations would have to be at that level also, not just at the the content serving end.
Yep. But CDNs, I would hope, are also on the ball with this. The only question I have for the CDN is, will they pre-cache the compressed state of the blob on the CDN? So, given all those questions, I threw this on the list in my comment at the end of the issue. I'll link to this in case nobody is looking at this one. Way down at the end of that issue, I do a comment just along the lines of transport level compression probably belongs in like a working group for a while just to work through all the different challenges and whatnot to sort it out before we do the full thumbs up on that. And I'm the kind of person that's not trying to make working groups because I know how many of these working groups have kind of fizzled a little bit lately. But it feels like a big enough challenge that folks should probably get together and work through all the challenges. All right. Otherwise in there, I include a note saying that runtimes, if runtimes want to support multiple index entries, because there was another thread in there talking about, hey, can we have either a multi-platform entry in there or something else? We had the text ad a while back. That was one of the things I threw in there early on of, and I'll read whatever Mike just said in a second here. Had the text in there that said if a runtime is trying to pull this content down and it sees two different entries for the platform and it can't tell the difference between the two, pick the first entry. And so that gives some kind of forward path in there, or we could potentially make a second kind of entry that says this is the Z standard specific image. It means that now you're pushing two images whenever you copy this up in two different formats, but on the pull side, potentially things can pull down just what they want. If you go that direction and not the transport side, then I could also see that people building off a base image, where the base image is one compression type and the image you create is different compression type, you'll get mixed compression layers. Because I think there's value to keeping the base image layers unchanged. Get layer sharing, you can dedupe on the pull, that kind of stuff. And so if you don't change the base image compression, then unless you're trying to match whatever the compression type is on the base image, I could see us getting in a mixed scenario where the tool says, hey, I want to use the C standard because that's going to get us better throughput on these extra layers we're adding. And when the base image upgrades, maybe they'll do it in the future. So Mike, I'm reading through your comment here. What's the language you're thinking of? Because I'm thinking that we need some language in the manifest file that specifies for the different layers in there that in addition to the 4 layers we say must be supported, the 2 tar layers and the 2 gzip layers, the non-distributable being the other versions of those, to add a section in there that says we should support the Z standard layer types. Are you thinking along those lines, or are you thinking something else?
Well, I wouldn't transfer it to a should, but it would be valuable to them to understand that we're going to make it a should in a point release, right?
So I feel like May is kind of implied today.
It is kind of implied. It's just not stated specifically. That's why my comment here was just like, heads up, right? This is happening. People are adding it. They weren't prohibited before, and they may be using these now. So if you wanted to support all standards, you would use you would probably want to implement for both as well as encryption. We didn't get into that discussion.
Yeah, don't steer us off track here.
Well, I mean, it's similar to the SHA thing, right? I mean, it's the same kind of problem. People may be using different SHAs, people may be using different, definitions of these files. They could be encrypted, they could be zipped. They could be zipped and encrypted.
I'm having a hard time hanging on to this car. You're steering all over the place here.
I'm trying to explain why I said it this way, right? Just basically tell them what you think is happening and what the standard will be the next rev as a note, and it's fine without requiring a should. And I know should doesn't require, but just tell them, we've already got implementations implementing it, right?
If we say should in there today, that doesn't mean implementations today have to change. It means implementations that say they are the next version compatible whenever we release the next version.
It depends on the day, right? Some days should means, well, that may not. And other days it means, well, you should, right? And you better do this or else, right? And that's all I'm saying to say in your note. You can add a description, right? You could even say it in that way. In the note, you could say that, any registry or client tool wanting to support all of the compression standards that are, typically being implemented should, right, also support Z standard. And I think as a note, it would read well. If you just were to add it back in, it's like, oh, we're changing the spec and we're requiring prior implementations to also have it, which is probably a good idea. People should cherry pick their old releases and add Z standard. And you could say that in a note without breaking the spec.
So right now I'm reading the manifest markdown file. We've got in the media type section, implementations must support, and we list the 4 media types that we supported forever.
Right. You got to do those. And it would imply, if you were saying and Z standard should be, it sort of implies that you should support the 6, right?
Well, it says they must support at least the following, which implies you may support others. So that I think we've already got the implicit may in there. But the next line in here says that manifest concern with portability should use one of those above types.
Right.
So I think we're already steering people. If you care about portability, stick with the ones that say must. But
yeah, it is. It is. I was just saying you can say that in human readable terms in another paragraph that just describes over time Z standard has been applied and should probably also be supported. You can just do it in a note as opposed to modifying the original spec to include the additional 2. It's your choice.
Yeah.
I'd approve either one. But I would want an asterisk on the new one saying this happened in this time frame, right? And you're going to probably have to upgrade to registries and client tools that support Z standard before using it. Otherwise, and tell them why, right? The thing that we talked about. Otherwise, you're going to end up with images being stored that can't be used by old non-upgraded registries or old updated clients, right?
Well, I think
Sorry, non-updated clients.
if people worry about supporting the old updated clients, not updated clients, then I think that line that says, if you're concerned about portability, use one of the 4. Those are it.
Right.
I feel like
that's why I'm saying don't add it to 2 more. That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so the discussion we're having right now is, do we add a second paragraph under this? We say entries in the field often uses gzip and whatnot. Do we add an extra paragraph in there that says, in addition, implementation should support yada and yada? The 2.
Yeah, it should also. I like that. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
In another paragraph. Yeah. And
we're not extending
make sure
the
you got
list.
the sentence in there that says over time, Z standard was added and this gzip was the prior should, right?
I feel like the over time is pointing to the different versions of the spec, and so people could look at different versions. What we don't have that I feel like would be nice for what you're looking for
It's the sentence
is,
I want you to write. That's the sentence I want you to have there.
yeah,
Is you've
what
got to
we
do the
don't,
investigation. You have to do your own investigation to find out if they've applied the shoulds for the new GZIP.
what we don't have in the spec today is for every item in the spec, what version of the spec did this item get added in at? We don't have that to say the data field got added in 1.1. We just say
Right.
there's a data field.
That's
So
right. It's this version. You'd have to go read a prior version of the spec. And to be fair, we've only had 2 versions of the spec now for it's a new
Yeah.
problem. Right.
But when you go out and look at like API documentation for other projects, a lot of projects out there will say, here's the API, this was introduced in version X.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a useful thing to have in the documentation. We just don't have it anywhere else. And so I'm
Okay.
wondering.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yes.
I'm wondering if that's like a whole global request. So the whole spec needs to be updated to say for every field in here, every new feature, we need to go back through everything and say the subject field was added in this version.
I wouldn't say the lack of having it on this one would be an indication that the others didn't need it.
No, I'm not saying that either.
I see what you're saying. I think
I'm not
it's
saying that
okay to
either.
do it one at a time.
I'm
I think
saying
it's
what
okay
you're
to do
asking for is a bigger request that might be a whole separate PR to go back through the entire spec. And that is something we should do.
Yeah.
But it's the entire spec, not just this one line that I'm thinking we need to add this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying you can do them one at a time. And this one would be nice. Put an asterisk on it if you add it so they can see, oh, this was added on this release. Oh, so I need to find out what, what version. I probably just need to upgrade is what they need to know, right? If it doesn't work. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, I think that the people that see this doesn't work are not going to come back to our spec. They're going to go back to the project that is implementing the spec.
Yeah. But I would like to avoid what you guys were talking about with the registry giving you a GZIP version if that's what you wanted on the client.
So we were talking about, in addition to this, a lot of the times the conversation went in the direction of doing transport level compression.
Right.
And that would kind of eliminate this entire conversation. You just change the spec that says everybody must support the 2 tar versions. And really, we deprecate non-distributable, so everybody must support the 1 tar version.
You basically then you would be saying we're not going to use the plus GZIP tag anymore. We're just going to do transport.
There's no GZIP. There's no Z standard. We already deprecated the non-distributable. So at that point, there is one media type that would be in every manifest.
I mean, that makes a lot of implications. It changes a lot of things. It's already compressed on both sides on the client. It needs to be unpacked. It changes a lot.
So we didn't say that you wouldn't have compression, but we moved the compression out of the image manifest JSON spec level and moved it into the transport level between the registry and the client.
Yeah, and I'm thinking when we start actually making such a thing happen, we're going to still need it to be compressed and encrypted and when we do that, we're going to probably have the situation where we've got 2 digests. And how will we supply 2 digests for the same SHA, one when it's uncompressed?
Oh, you do that today already. Tinon's over there trying to say diff ID, diff ID, diff ID. Did I steal your thunder, Tianon?
Nope, you're good. I like it when other people are saying the same things. It means I'm not totally crazy.
Cool.
Yeah, we've got the diff ID that's in the image config. That's the uncompressed digest. And then
which is why we use config. Yeah, we use the config digest for the image rep already. I just wasn't aware that we supported that, and also okay, that makes sense. So the image could be any diff, and it's the original compression, but we're not compressing it if it's just over the wire. It should be the same then with the config.
You would have one digest to rule them all at that point.
Yeah, well, you more than likely we'd be having people beg us to put compression back in on the client, so that when we're storing it on disk, it's not, it's compressed.
You
Right.
can still store it on disk compressed. You can cache it on the registry
I know you guys aren't
compressed.
stopping this. I'm just saying right now we don't, right? We download it as is and store it as is to keep, so we can do a lookup by digest, right? At a later point in time on the image. And we also have the config reference.
The download may already be happening compressed of an uncompressed tar. That may be done today.
It might already,
Need-
okay, cool,
Needs testing, citation needed.
okay.
But depending on how Go does some of their HTTP headers, they may automatically do that negotiation, say, hey, we're talking over the wire here. You support gzip,
Supported.
I support gzip, let me compress it.
Yeah. You're probably right. Yep. You probably have to use some kind of environment variable, but yeah, it's probably there. Okay. Investigation required.
So as much as we all want to jump into the transport and probably need like some people do some testing and debugging and figuring out how much will completely break some of the containerd stuff. Hopefully it won't. For the short term, the nearest term, add a new paragraph in there that says that people should, so implementation should support these other two media types. And then if we want to do transport, dare I say, maybe a working group, get some registries and runtimes together and have the discussion.
Are you gonna cherry pick that to 1.0?
So
I think the answer needs to be yes.
cherry pick what to 1.0 is long since released. 1.1 is already released, which
Right. If you're adding a new should, right? 1.1 should also be compatible in this regard with 1.0. So I'm just saying it's probably a cherry pick to also add an update to 1.0. Should also support it there.
do we? I feel like
If not-
1.0 is out, released, done. Nothing to change there. That would be my take. And that anybody that doesn't support Z standard can just say, I support image spec 1.1.0.
Is this going to be a 1.0.1?
I don't think we're going to go back into a
1.1.0 is already out. Yeah.
Yeah, 1.1.0 is already out, so I don't think we're going to touch anything on the 1.0 branch at all at this point. I think that's out the door and done.
We're pretty much doing that. Yeah, we're not usually forking our branches, are we?
We have done that once for a security release, and my goodness, trying to sort out some of the under the covers what happened in GitHub with that one is not fun.
Okay. Fair enough.
I still don't know what happened because I tried to do some cherry picks to clean some stuff up at one point to make a 1.0.1 release at some point, and I can never make it work.
So it wasn't a crazy idea. It's a pain in the butt. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to pull in a bunch of commits to get everything other than refer stuff in there because there's people that want to see it, and
I got you.
It was not pretty.
Yeah. And that gets us back to the other question, talking about when it was, the dating and schedule. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If we have a single commit that we want to put into like a security update that needs to go out and we want to cut a new release of an old one, sure. But as we're going through this kind of stuff, I say this is just moving forward. I would just do a new patch on 1.1 and call it 1.1.1 if we want to add that.
Yeah. I'm sure you probably remember, but over in the distribution spec, we used to have some versioning where it would describe how it worked under Docker and how it's working now under OCI, you know, those sort of things. And I think some of that got deleted.
I think I was going back looking at some of those
Yeah.
old issues. I mean, this is me right now going looking back at some old issues to see if we can get some of the stuff cleaned up.
Okay.
All right, so 2 parallel paths on this. I'll keep the transport level on the table for right now. Thanks, Ajay. For right now, I will work on adding another should section into the manifest. And the image compatibility working group could be an option if people want to start shipping a multi-compression image, both gzip and Z standard is like 2 different variants of the same architecture.
Is that already in the
different
platform switcher in the index manifest?
There's nothing in the index today that says this is the compression of the layers within that. And so that would
Okay.
have to be something we discuss, and I feel like the image compatibility working group is the perfect place to do that because all the other stuff we're doing over there. To
Right.
say, hey,
Yeah.
can we get a field in there that says this is the compression type, and that way runtimes can look at it and be like, I recognize that compression type. Let me pull this other one instead of the first one on the list.
Exactly. Yeah, because I don't want to look at the platform and the manifest to figure out, you know, which one I want to pull. I prefer just to
Yeah.
use platform structure. That's
so
where we're going.
So the image compatibility working group, the direction that we're going over there is we've been multiple directions. Some people want to see a whole artifact. They're doing a lot of other stuff. The simple direction I've been going is extending the platform object for something that looks like an annotation, and then passing that through all the platform selectors to be able to look at it and say, for my runtime, I like these other kind of annotation-like qualities here, and I see that in this platform field, so only pick that one instead of the default first one.
Right. Well, that's cool. I like it. Yeah,
And-
much prefer it there. And then over time, if somebody says they prefer that, then we can create the version of the image with compression, even if it doesn't have it in the registry. And we can keep a map to it, a link, you know, local for the original version of it.
You would have multiple entries in the index, and so all the old systems out there that don't know how to do any of this stuff would just fall back and pull the gzip one.
If it was pushed, yeah.
They would pick the first one from the index, and so you would ship both. You would have it in the index where you have the first one in there that everybody recognizes, and the second one that says, I'm the same thing, but with gzip.
Yeah.
And then old clients don't know anything about that extra field in there. They would just ignore it and pick the first entry from the list.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that kind of stuff actually happens, right?
I think compression is one simple example of things that can be done with the image compatibility, and that people that really take off with that one are going to be doing a lot of other stuff with it. They're going to be doing GPU cards. They're going to be doing who knows what kind of hardware stuff they want to do.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, Katrina, we've been working on a Windows version of the OS thing that splits the platform in that for that purpose. If you've got, you know, support for Windows 10 versus Windows 11, right? It's still Windows, but it's a different version. And they can support both at the same time sometimes, but some images are going to prefer one API or the other. So they're already doing that. They're pushing 2 images.
So I know today that you don't just push an image for Windows, you push an image for every patch of Windows. Like they don't have support across even the major version.
But there is a concept of a minor version that they do support across for the most part. So it's not every single patch Tuesday you add another element to your matrix. It's slightly better than that. So right now there are 2 major versions that are worth supporting.
I'm just looking at the Golang image out there, so you're probably as familiar, if not more familiar with some of that. So there's like 10.0.1 20348 and 10.0.17763, and then after that there's like another dot for the individual patches, I guess. But yeah, I'll be very surprised with the selectors if Windows 11 could just pull a Windows 10. That kind of blows my mind considering everything else that's been going on with the Windows images.
Well, and to be clear, these aren't Windows 10 or Windows 11 images. These are Windows Server images, which is a totally different OS technically. There are Windows client images, but they're a different thing.
It's even worse. I'm so glad to be on the Linux side of this.
Get a hold of Katrina. She's been working on it.
Oh, this is one of those places where I'm very happy to be ignorant and blissfully ignorant of everything that's going on over there.
Yeah.
So the only other item I thought of on the Z standard was let's see, I'm probably not saying his name right. Yeah, if I try to say his name, I'm going to mess it up. So one of the Red Hatters was talking that they use Z standard with the chunked formatting, and they pass a couple extra annotations in there to know about their chunking BOs that they're needed for that. I had mentioned that it might be good to get that kind of detail into the spec itself so that people know if they want to push a chunked manifest, they need to do something like that. Looking at it, the annotations they've got are io.github.containers. So I think that's the Red Hat Containers project out there.
Was it Peter Hunt or?
You can see him in issue 803. He's the comment right before mine. I'm just very bad at pronouncing some names, and this one I would completely screw up, so I won't try. But I wonder if it makes sense to get that annotation thrown in the OCI spec, and do we want to change that to an OCI annotation? Or do we want to just document that the containers project is using this one to be aware of it? Or is this one of those things we push off and just say, if you're using Z standard, that's good enough, and let's not talk about the chunk stuff?
The Red Hat guy I see in 803 is Giuseppe.
Yeah. If this is an annotation that they're already actively using, like there are actual images in the wild that have this annotation already, then I think we would do better to document their annotation than to create our own just for the sake of it saying OCI in it. Like,
Not unlike how we document the Docker header. Or
yeah, let me rephrase that. Let's learn from our mistake in renaming all of these things in a totally superfluous way that did nothing but cause disruption and didn't actually provide any value. And instead document the thing that people are using instead of trying to own the thing that people are using.
To our credit, we never changed the Docker header for the digest. And that is, for so many times, people have said, well, that's not an OCI thing, so we're not going to implement it. It's like, just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to go that direction. If it's already there, I think it's nice to document that implementations doing the chunking could use this annotation. Here's the spec behind it.
Yeah, let's document for interoperability purposes to make sure that everyone's doing this the same way and everyone can benefit in the same way.
Yeah.
Like there's probably some containerd annotations that we ought to document in the image spec.
I know at least one. You're not going to like it though.
It's fine. If it's in active use, like let's document it. Let's talk about how it's used and help content authors navigate this ecosystem, because if that's not why we're here, then I don't know why we are.
It is the io.containerd.image.name annotation that is used when you have an OCI layout and you want to specify the repository name.
Yeah, I don't like it and I don't agree with its existence, but I do still think we should document it because it is less ambiguous than the thing we have. And its existence is proof that it's less ambiguous, because the thing we made was ambiguous enough that Containerd felt like they had to make one that was less ambiguous. That's fair. We should document that. We should help people navigate that minefield.
I just had to do it. I couldn't help it.
Yep, you got me. I'm all worked up.
Nerd sniped.
But more
why
like,
do I feel like I merged that one?
I want the OCI to live up to its mandate. Like the purpose of us being here, the point of us even sitting on this call right now is to try and help improve interoperability in the container ecosystem.
Yeah.
And documenting other people's annotations, not doing that just because they're not OCI annotations, it feels silly. Like, our whole point is documenting interoperability. Let's document it. Let's help people navigate this.
Thumbs up from me.
Thumbs up for me too.
Okay,
We'll deprecate our, our labels as they migrate over into OCI. That works.
I'll put away my soapbox. Put the soap back in it. I had to dump the soap all over the floor to flip that over.
Yeah, it's
good
just
soap.
too easy to add annotations to do proof of concepts. It's just way too easy. And then going back and pulling them out and making them actual PR against a spec, and that's hard.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we should add competing annotations. I'm saying we should literally add the Containerd annotations to our documentation in a, hey, by the way, here's annotations that you might find interesting, and here's where to go read about them from the upstream projects.
Right. Well-known
downstream projects.
That
Which
makes
direction
sense.
is that?
Yeah, if we had the ability to publish our well-known annotations, I would push you a list.
I would call them like, implementer notes kind of stuff. We don't control this. We're just letting you know this exists, and it's a nice to have.
Yep.
If,
and that would have been a good way to start with explaining what's going on with Z standard. Which is why I was thinking this is a note. it gives you a way to start talking about it. What's going on. It's almost a blog within the spec, right?
I'm plowing right on this from making it a should.
I'll still use the spec even if you do that.
A should is not a must.
I know it's not a must.
You're still conformant with that.
Yep.
Anything else on Z standard that we're missing? Because that was, I dug through this thread. It's got 77 comments. It's going back 4 years. Are there things that we need to do to improve the scenario as it exists today, to improve support of this, to fix in the spec? I'm counting on all of you to read 77 comments really, really quick and give me an answer right now. Not really.
Right.
If you come up with any, drop them that issue and make sure we don't.
Oh, you sure? You sure you want me to do this?
Crypt layer type. I think that would be separate from Z standard.
If you look at, the proposal was to actually do it at the same time, but I'm just saying.
But Z standard is a single standard.
Yeah.
Sure. There is one thing that is called Z standard. There's not one thing that is called encryption.
Right.
So an encrypted layer media type is a lot more controversial. I know you're just shit posting in the chat there, Brian, but I kind of want you to. You should do it.
It's the best part about the chat. We're all professional trolls in there. This is the entire reason I have to copy the chat out of the Zoom every time. I'm like, this is the best part of the conversation.
For the sake of the recording, Brian Goff from Microsoft has promised in the chat that he's going to write a second thing called Z Standard.
You know, when you guys said Z standard, I was thinking to myself, is that which one? And is it the one that, you know, we had that CVE problem with last year? Yeah.
Oh my.
All right, with a couple minutes left, deleting by tag. There's an issue over on distribution spec for that one. Folks asking for clarification there. And I think the direction I went with this was saying that we should include a definition of what a tag is beyond what we currently have in there. What was it? Today we say tag is a custom human readable manifest identifier. And I really want to update that definition and make it describe that it is a pointer or an indirect reference to a manifest that is managed by Digest. And that way, when I get to the tag section, the tag deletion section, I can say deleting a tag just deletes the tag. Does not necessarily delete the underlying manifest. That is all left as an implementation decision. How do people feel about that? If we actually gave the tag definition a little bit more clarification around it.
At least, my opinion, if you delete a tag, it's about visibility. So it disappears from tags listing. That's it. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, the fact that we say that a tag is a manifest identifier, when you delete the identifier, does that delete the manifest? That's the whole question going on in this issue. And I agree with you, Rom. I feel like it takes it out of the tag listing. If you query by the tag again, you're going to get back a 404 that says that tag doesn't exist. But the manifest itself may or may not exist. That's all up to the registry.
Yeah, that's the part that's implementation defined by the registry, because we have to account for garbage collecting existing.
It's the part where we have to tiptoe around.
Yeah, the manifest might still exist, but it also might not. It is perfectly reasonable for a registry to delete the content after the tag is deleted.
And the thing that everybody raising these issues hates is when we tiptoe around stuff. It's like, no, I want an answer. I'm like, you're not going to get one.
Yeah, talk to your doctor / registry to see if tag deletion is right for you.
You got Joy on that one.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, that gives me 2 things to work on this week. I can work on a couple of PRs there. 2 small ones, nothing too major.
Oh, we're making a Brandon task list? Why didn't you say
No.
so earlier? I got a whole laundry list I can throw on there.
Okay, now we're going to work on the TNON task list. What do you got to work on, TNON?
Oh,
Mike, you know you want to throw something on this task list.
no. I just heard what happens when you try to throw an item on somebody's task list. The mirror happens. It's on yours now.
Mike, your opportunity is here. You can ask him to do encryption.
I'm going on PTO.
Yeah, you probably don't want to ask me to implement encrypted layers because it will not look like any of the existing solutions.
I'm good with that. I just wanted to be able to do encryption.
I am really good at encryption. It's the whole decryption part that's left up to the implementer.
It would be good for them to know it's encrypted. Because unpacking probably isn't going to work if you don't have the key.
I just export it with dev random, and it's all fully encrypted.
No, that's encoded. All right.
All right. On that note, if nothing else is left, free chat for 2 minutes where you guys can all run.
Sounds good. Cheers.
All right.
See you in a couple
Cheers.
weeks. See you in a couple weeks.
Cheers,
Oh,
all.
yeah,
Have a
actually,
good
that
week
is,
off.
Brandon, I'll just give you a heads up. I will be traveling for GraphQL Conf next week and then Open Source Summit EU the week following. I think I'll be able to
Nice.
still attend next week because it's just in Pacific time, and I think I'll still be able to make it, but I may have to send regrets. Just giving you a heads up.
So if people are out for the next 2 weeks, I might be out the 3rd week on the 26th. So
All right.
if we don't see each other all
See you in
together again in
October.
the same place at the same time until October, have a good rest of your September.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we'll be 4 weeks away from KubeCon at that point.
Yes. Actually was just trying to find the right person internally about getting y'all's space secure for a in person. So I may just slack with our folks async about that if I get some updates.
Shoot for the Tuesday if you can.
Tuesday, okay, yeah, I wanted to look and see if there was conflicts with people's talks and stuff. Tuesday, the first day, is generally going to have the highest likelihood of people being there. So okay. Tuesday.
Monday is contributor day for Kubernetes. Just a heads up.
Yeah.
It may look like there's not a lot going on, but it's going to be completely booked.
Well, people are either going to be flying in still on Monday, or they'll be, like you say, at those contributor days that are happening, and there's several. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the first real day is Wednesday. Oh, okay.
Alrighty. Thanks all.
Okay. Cheers.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.